Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're counting down 10 of the most legendary, most debated, and most deeply respected watches in the entire modern canon, a list that reads like a greatest hits of watchmaking ambition, heritage, and enduring design genius. These are timepieces that have shaped the culture of collecting, defined entire categories, and in some cases permanently altered the course of horological history. From bold avant-garde statements to the most quietly powerful icons the industry has ever produced, every watch on today's list carries a story worth understanding. Whether you're just beginning your collecting journey or you've been living and breathing watches for decades, this countdown has something that will speak directly to you. Let's get started. Number 10, Tag Heuer Monaco. The Tag Heuer Monaco arrived in 1969 like a provocation. A square-cased automatic chronograph with a bold blue dial and a crown positioned on the left side of the case, breaking virtually every convention of watch design that had come before it. Launched alongside Heuer's Caliber 11, one of the world's first automatic chronograph movements, the Monaco was an act of pure confidence from a brand that had always operated at the intersection of precision timekeeping and motorsport. It became immortal almost immediately when Steve McQueen wore one on his wrist during the filming of the 1971 racing classic Le Mans, an association so powerful and so authentically earned that it has defined the Monaco's cultural identity ever since. The square K, the pusher arrangement, the electric blue dial with its contrasting red chronograph seconds hand, all of it communicates a personality that is uncompromising, unconventional, and entirely at ease with its own distinctiveness. Today's Monaco references that original design with fidelity and reverence while housing modern, well-finished movements that honor the caliber's pioneering history. This is not a watch for those who want to blend in, and that has always been exactly the point. The Tag Heuer Monaco retails for approximately $6,150 to $7,500 USD, depending on configuration. Number 9, Hublot Big Bang Unico. The Hublot Big Bang Unico is a watch that does not whisper. It announces itself with the full force of an engineering manifesto made physical. When Jean-Claude Biver relaunched Hublot in the mid-2000s and introduced the Big Bang, the watch world's reaction was divided and fierce, exactly as provocative design always intends. The fusion philosophy at Hublot's core, combining materials and aesthetics that had never previously shared a case, produced something genuinely new, rubber integrated into a luxury sports watch in a way that felt natural rather than compromised, case architectures of titanium, ceramic, and carbon fiber, combined with an aesthetic boldness that made every other sports watch on the market seem suddenly timid. The Unico movement, developed entirely in-house, brought legitimacy to the engineering ambitions behind the visual drama, a column wheel flyback chronograph of genuine complexity and impressive finishing housed in a movement architecture unique to Hublot. Love it or challenge it, the Big Bang Unico cannot be ignored, and in a watch world that can sometimes mistake conservatism for virtue, that refusal to be ignored is its own form of integrity. The Hublot Big Bang Unico retails for approximately $21,000, $28,000 USD, depending on material configuration. Number 8, Panerai Luminor Marina. The Panerai Luminor Marina carries a provenance more genuinely clandestine than almost any other watch in existence, because for most of its history it was never meant to be seen by the public at all. Panerai supplied precision diving instruments to the Italian Navy's elite frogman units for decades, and the watches developed for that purpose were classified military equipment unknown outside the walls of the Florentine manufacture and the briefing rooms of Naval Command. When Panerai finally opened to the civilian market in the 1990s, collectors encountered something unlike anything else available: a 44mm cushion case of extraordinary presence, a crown-locking device of mechanical ingenuity unlike any other watch, and a dial of radical simplicity designed entirely around legibility in dark water at depth. The Luminor Marina brings all of that history into a modern package. The in-house P9010 movement with a 3-day power reserve, 300 meters of water resistance, and a physical presence on the wrist that is immediately, unmistakably, Panerai. This is a watch of genuine military heritage and unapologetic character, one that rewards the wearer with a story worth telling every time someone asks what they're wearing. The Panerai Luminor Marina retails for approximately $7,400, $9,000 USD, depending on configuration. Number 7, Seiko Prospex LX line. The Seiko Prospex LX line is the moment Seiko stopped letting the watch world underestimate it. A declaration in titanium and sapphire and extraordinary finishing that Japan's greatest watchmaker is capable of competing at the highest possible level of the industry on every dimension simultaneously. LX designates luxury, and that designation is backed up at every turn without apology. The DiaShield treated titanium cases scatter light from surfaces finished with a precision that rivals anything Geneva produces. The dial work, whether in the deep ocean of an ice blue sunburst or the controlled geometry of a tuna-inspired design, achieves a depth of texture and layer that rewards minutes of close examination. And powering the finest LX variants is the spring drive caliber, Seiko's own revolutionary movement combining a traditional mainspring with a tri-synchro electromagnetic regulator to achieve rate accuracy of +1 second per day. A performance standard no conventional mechanical or quartz movement can match at any price. The Prospex LX is the watch that asks the watch world a direct and uncomfortable question. If you judge a timepiece by what it achieves rather than where it was made, what does your hierarchy actually look like? The Seiko Prospex LX line retails for approximately $2,500, $6,000 USD depending on configuration. Number 6, Grand Seiko SBG 211. The Grand Seiko SBG 211, known universally as the Snowflake, is not merely a celebrated watch. It is a work of art that happens to tell the time, and the distinction matters enormously. The dial of the SBG 211 is hand-finished by artisans at Seiko's Shinshu Watch Studio in the mountains of Nagano Prefecture, using a technique that recreates the texture of fresh snow on a still winter morning, a surface of white Zaratsu polished facets that catch and scatter light in a way that no photograph has ever fully captured and no description ever fully conveys. You must see it in person to understand why this watch stops conversations. Beneath that extraordinary surface beats the spring drive caliber 9R65, the movement that delivers Seiko's +1 second per day spring drive accuracy in a thin, elegant package with a 72-hour power reserve and the impossibly smooth glide of a spring drive seconds hand that has no tick, no jump, only continuous, perfect motion. The titanium case with its mirror-finished Zaratsu polishing completes a watch of total aesthetic coherence. The Snowflake is not chasing Swiss prestige. It has transcended the comparison entirely. The Grand Seiko SB oven retails for approximately $5 USD. Number 5, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Gerald Genta sketched the Royal Oak on a single napkin overnight in 1971, and what emerged from that solitary act of creative urgency was the design that permanently and irrevocably changed the identity of luxury watchmaking. An octagonal bezel secured by 8 exposed hexagonal screws, an integrated bracelet of alternating brushed and polished surfaces, a tapisserie guilloche dial of horizontal and vertical hatching, a stainless steel case presented at a price higher than Rolex's gold watches. Every element of the Royal Oak's launch was a provocation, and every element of that provocation turned out to be correct. The watch that the industry dismissed as overpriced nonsense became the template for half a century of luxury sports watch design, spawning an entire genre of integrated bracelet, tool-inspired, unapologetically steel-fine watches that now represents the most coveted segment in the entire market. The Royal Oak's case finishing remains 50 years on a benchmark of what Côte de Genève decoration and Zaratsu equivalent polishing can achieve when applied with obsessive commitment. The caliber 3120 inside is a movement of considerable beauty and proven longevity. The Royal Royal Oak did not just make history, it wrote the chapter that every watch designer since has been trying to add something to. The Audemars Piguet Royal Oak retails for approximately $2,400 USD at retail when retail access is available at all. Number 4. Patek Philippe Nautilus. The Patek Philippe Nautilus exists in a category so rarefied that discussing it purely as a watch almost misses the point, though it must be said immediately that as a watch it is extraordinary. Also designed by Gerald Genta, launched in 1976 as a companion provocation to the Royal Oak, the Nautilus drew its form from the circular porthole windows of ocean liners, a rounded octagonal bezel with integrated lugs flowing seamlessly into a bracelet of horizontal embossed links, a dial of horizontal striping that gives depth and movement to what might otherwise be a flat surface, a profile of architectural thinness that made it unlike any luxury watch then in existence. Patek Philippe's manufacture finishing, the beveling, the anglage, the movement decoration visible through the case back represents the absolute summit of what traditional Swiss craft can achieve in a production context, applied to components so small that the work is essentially invisible to the naked eye, yet somehow transforms the entire character of the object. And then there is the Patek Philippe name itself, a manufacturer that has never once been owned by anyone other than its founding families, that has never made a quartz movement, that produces fewer watches per year than most brands sell in a week, and that operates on a time scale of institutional prestige accumulated over nearly 2 centuries of unbroken excellence. The Nautilus is not merely desirable, it is the definition of desirable. The Patek Philippe Nautilus retails for approximately $34,893 USD, a number that has no relationship whatsoever to secondary market reality. Number 3. Tudor Black Bay 58. The Tudor Black Bay 58 does something quietly remarkable. It makes the case with total conviction and zero compromise that the best watch purchase a person can make in the modern market might sit at a price point that most dedicated collectors consider merely the entry level. Tudor's relationship with Rolex is documented and openly acknowledged. And the quality infrastructure that relationship provides is visible in every aspect of the Black Bay 58, the case finishing, the movement engineering, the bracelet construction, the overall solidity of an object that simply feels right in a way that transcends specification sheets. The watch takes its name from 1958, the year Tudor produced its first watch rated to 200 meters, and the design language is an honest, deeply respectful translation of that mid-century heritage into a modern wearable. The 39mm diameter hits a sweet spot of versatility that most modern watches miss by going larger. The in-house MT5402 movement delivers 70 hours of power reserve, chronometer certification, and silicon balance spring technology for magnetic resistance. The gilt dial variant, with its warm, aged indices and snowflake hands, achieves a vintage-inspired beauty that costs multiples more to replicate elsewhere. In a market saturated with compromises, the Black Bay 58 makes not a single one. The Tudor Black Bay 58 retails for approximately $3,775 USD. Number 2. Omega Speedmaster Professional. The Omega Speedmaster Professional is the only watch in history that can place on its credentials the words "flown on every crewed NASA mission since 1965 and worn on the surface of the moon." That is not marketing language. That is a matter of historical record, one of the most remarkable and permanent facts in the biography of any manufactured object ever created. The story of how the Speedmaster earned its NASA certification in 1965, surviving a battery of extreme tests that eliminated every other candidate, is a story of engineering triumph under conditions designed specifically to find failure. And the story of how, during the Apollo 13 crisis of 1970, the Speedmaster became a critical navigation instrument in the emergency procedures that brought 3 astronauts back from the edge of catastrophe. That story transforms the watch from an instrument into something approaching a sacred object for anyone who understands what it represents. The modern Moonwatch, powered by the coaxial master chronometer caliber 3861 with 15,000 Gauss magnetic resistance and METIS certification, brings those space-proven credentials into a modern performance package without altering a single element of the design that made it timeless. The asymmetric case, the tachymeter bezel, the 3-register black dial, the Hesalite or sapphire crystal, all of it unchanged, all of it still perfect. The Omega Speedmaster professional retails for approximately $7,200 to $9,000 USD depending on configuration. Number 1, Rolex Submariner. The Rolex Submariner sits at the summit of today's list and of almost every conversation about watches that the world has ever had. Not through accident, not through marketing alone, and not simply through the power of a name. It sits there because it earned it. Over 70 years of continuous production, relentless refinement, and an accumulation of cultural presence, so total and so global that the Submariner has transcended its category and become the universal symbol of what a watch is. When someone who knows nothing about watchmaking pictures a watch, a serious, purposeful, beautiful watch on the wrist of someone who means business, they are picturing almost certainly a Rolex Submariner. Introduced in 1953 as one of the world's first purpose-built dive watches rated to 100 meters, the Submariner has evolved with absolute precision over the decades, depth rating increasing to 300 meters, the oyster case and oyster lock clasp refined to engineering perfection. The Serichrome ceramic bezel insert replacing aluminum with a material immune to fading and scratching, and the caliber 3D235 movement inside, delivering a 70-hour power reserve, chronergy escapement, and superlative chronometer certification to +2 seconds per day. Every millimeter of a modern Submariner has been considered, reconsidered, and optimized over 7 decades of institutional commitment to getting it right. The bracelet taper, the lug width, the dial printing, the weight in hand. All of it is the product of an obsession with a specific, definitive, unreachable standard of perfection. And all of it, when you finally hold one, makes complete and total sense. There are more expensive watches. There are more complicated watches. There are watches made in smaller numbers with more exotic materials by more celebrated independent masters. But there is only one watch that the entire world across every culture and every continent recognizes and understands as the watch, and it is this one. The Rolex Submariner retails for approximately $10,000 USD at retail on the rare occasion you find one there.